Hi there, and welcome to another episode of Therapy by the Book, the show where we take your favorite fictional characters and ask the question, what would it be like if they came to therapy? My name is William Haddad.
I'm Daniel Villanueva.
And for this episode, we're going to be working with a character client who actually comes from what is, for me personally, one of my absolute favorite stories and movies of all time, Forrest Gump.
From all the way down to the right of Greenbow, Alabama.
That's right. In the deep South. My grandfather is actually from Alabama as well, believe it or not.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've got some roots out there. Not in Greenbow, but hearing the Alabama accents that you hear in Forrest Gump always brings back memories, from that side of my family. So that's one of the many, many reasons that I love this story and Forrest as a person so much. If you know me, anybody who's listening who knows me personally, you'll know I've probably said to you at some point that Forrest Gump is my number one favorite film of all time. It surpasses every other movie I've ever seen. It's been that way for decades already, really. And I don't see it changing anytime soon. So I'm going to get personal, a little bit today. I'm going to do my best to keep the professional, objective perspective of clinician. But this story does have a very sentimental connection to my heart.
Well, I'm hoping you don't do that. Let go, man. Let's go deep into it. This isn't a session, and just like the disclaimer, this isn't therapy. Let's dig in and let's get emotional. Let's get connected to this guy, this world, because he is an incredible person, incredible character. And I'll agree with you, it's one of the greatest movies. I would even like yourself argue it's one of my favorites for sure. But one of the greatest movies ever made, and I love Tom Hanks. Incredible actor, yeah. So yeah, let's dig in then. Let's go to Greenbow. Let's sit out by the lake. It's a nice breezy day, so we're not all sweaty and sticky. And let's have a conversation.
So when we open in the story is it begins in the 1950s, and Forrest's birth date I think would actually have been in the late 40s at that. So we're going back to a time in America for this referral when life and really the culture, your day-to-day existence, and a lot of the perspectives and language and social norms and standards were almost as my dad once put it, because he was born in 57, so not that long after Forrest was. It was almost like being on an alien planet compared to the way that American culture shifted. Yeah, has shifted over the decades.
Which I'm happy that happened. Forrest grew up in a really rough time. And as the story goes on, you see that he was kind of in that incredible patch of time during wars and civil rights movements and Watergate and everything and in between. And there was a lot of prejudice towards him being different. What we would call neurodivergent now. He was seen in a different light. They were very minimized, very looked down upon, talked down upon, and pushed off to the side.
Yeah, he was treated with dismissive condescension by a lot of the adults in his life, outside of his mother, of course, who was just a saint and an angel all in one.
She changed his life. And this is the whole thing about family dynamics, man. If Forrest's mom changed this person's life, she gave him his ability to have that emotional intelligence that most people don't have. She gave him that opportunity, and she also, because of how much she loved him, how much she encouraged him not to see himself as different, he was able to look past, everything that was going on in his life, that continued to go on in his life. And we'll get further into it. There was another podcast that I listened to, and I can't remember the guy's name. And he's really emotional about the fact that he just realized that Forrest was aware of everything that was going on with him. He was aware that they were treating him horribly. He was aware that he was maybe not up to par with whatever the heck the normal is. And there's no such thing as normal, everybody. And that he, even given these facts, he was never bitter. He was never mean. He was never. He was always. It was always love.
Oh
And he always
yes.
chose that route. And I remember hearing that and thinking, man, I've always thought the same thing when I saw the movie. Or I'm sorry, when I spoke to Forrest, I thought the same thing. It's that he understood it, but wasn't going to let it control him. And it's something that we try to work with people all the time to have this understanding that we're not going to give everybody the strings to be our puppet masters. We're going to live present. We're going to be comfortable within our own skin, and we're going to accept that maybe I think what was it? His level 75 IQ as a little boy what is not the end of the world. That he's okay.
Yeah, not even remotely close to it. Yeah.
No.
Two things that I learned or I understood better about Forrest this time around is that one, he's actually very smart. That 75 IQ is nothing. That's throw that away, because that doesn't even begin to give you a sense of what he's capable of with his mind and his smarts. Forrest is actually brilliant. He has two things. One, he has an amazing memory. He can recall exchanges practically word for word. Sometimes even someone only needs to say something once to him for him to commit it to memory as a lesson. And we'll get more into this later on, but part of his way of thinking and of perceiving the world is that he refers back to impactful exchanges he's had with the people in his life that he cares about. As this person always said to me, or they always, were like this, or they always said that, and it's played it's played for laughs on some level, sort of as tongue-in-cheek humor with the voiceover narration versus the actual spoken dialogue in the story. But actually, what it is it's illustrating Forrest's extraordinary capacity to remember dialogue, to remember words spoken to him as they happened. Because I'm going to give you and the listeners an example to kind of break down what I'm saying. He talks about constantly throughout the film how my mama always said life was like a box of chocolates, or how my friend Bubba knew everything there was to know about the shrimping business, or what have you, or how my mama always said death is just a part of life, a normal one that we all go through. Well, for all the instances that he says it multiple times and uses the descriptor always, as if to emphasize that this was something that he heard many times, that it was a constant lesson being imparted to him. His mother only ever says that once, actually, that we hear her. And it's almost and even if she said it on more than one occasion, the lesson of about death is almost certainly something she only ever said to him once, because it was only on the occasion when she was actually dying of cancer that the context for her to say that even arose. Yet Forrest always imparted it the same way, as if this was a permanent message that he'd always been aware of, that they'd always been communicating to him. And on some level they were. But it just goes to show how his perception and how he communicated that perception actually illustrates what an extraordinary capacity for memory and connection with other people he's always possessed.
Literally that. Yeah, emotional intelligence, what I keep going back to. And again, I'm going to talk about mom a lot throughout this, because I think she was such a pivotal part of his life, and really an inspiration to parents all the way around. She, at a time when they didn't really, I can't give you a diagnosis yet, but I almost did. I almost spit it out.
We're not even 10 minutes in.
I know. At a time when they didn't understand his neurodivergency, right? They didn't understand what that was, or they just thought he was slow, I think was a word they used to use, and the R word and other words. she understood. She learned how to communicate with him. She learned how to get things across to him. And I love the fact that you brought up her on her deathbed, because that was a perfect, incredible example of that. Um, because of his diagnosis and just in generalities, I guess, he doesn't need fluff. He needs things to be clear and to the point. And when he asks, what's wrong, Mama, and she says, "Oh, I'm dying." Clear, to the fact. And but then she goes into this explanation that's so heartfelt, and so kind and tender, but also very straightforward, so that he can truly understand and conceptualize what's going on, and what the inevitable is, and that put him at ease. That put him in a place to be able to continue to move forward, and have some grace for her, and really self grace for himself. So I thought that was just such a beautiful thing that they incorporated. And I wonder if there was some research done to understand that diagnosis, in order to really communicate with him, with Forrest and little Forrest and all the Forrests that we get to meet throughout this journey, in the ways that was most beneficial for them. Yeah, Mom, man, she was amazing.
Yeah, if there's a parent of the year contender, it's
Whew.
her. It's her, hands down.
Absolutely.
She I like that you emphasized that it's because she says it directly to him. I'm dying. She doesn't mince words. She doesn't use any idioms or expressions or sugarcoat it in any sense.
No.
And she's a woman who I think it was even outside of her relationship with Forrest, she's a woman who tends to follow that communication style, to be very direct, to be very frank, and not beat around the bush. So I don't know if I think it's both, really, is that this is her natural communication style, but she also understood that it was what was best for Forrest as well, to hear her communicate in that style. That is exactly the kind of communication that lands best with Forrest, because his whole perception is based around taking everything at literally face value. We'll get more into this too as we go on, but it's not that he's slow or that he's dumb or that he is, or that he is unaware or misses things. That's the other thing I was talking about earlier, actually, was that in addition to having a good memory, he's also highly aware and alert of his surroundings. For instance, he hears the word vacation spoken by his mother in the principal's office, but he's not in the office. He's sitting outside on the bench. He's not even looking at them, but his ears pick up that word, and he carries that word.
That was at the school, actually. That wasn't
right.
That wasn't on the swing at home. That was at the school.
Right, in the principal's office.
Yeah.
He hears it, but then he carries it with him through the rest of the day, and then in the evening, he brings it up again. So it's both memory and perception on display there. But his perception is based around taking things as they are, as they're presented to him. So if he's in the protests at DC, he'll see it as he's standing in line. If he's out there humping in Vietnam, he'll see it as we're looking for this guy named Charlie.
Charlie, right?
There's
who knows? We still don't know where Tex is from, though.
No, I don't think we ever will. Honestly, that's one mystery that will remain unsolved, I fear. But that's the thing. Inferences are not his strong suit. It's just not how he operates. It's not how he sees the world. He reads social cues and situations effectively, but differently. He doesn't make a lot of inferences, though he's not incapable of making them, as we also see on very special moments. He does make inferences, in fact. So it's not that he isn't able to do so. It's just that his go-to approach, the approach that feels natural and organic to him, is to judge or react to things simply as they are presented to him here in the moment, without overanalyzing, thinking, or looking for things that aren't there.
I totally agree. I mean, he says at one point, "Mom always knows how to explain things to me so I can understand them." If what was something about the leg braces?
If God had intended for us all to be the
Yes,
same, he would have given us all braces
all
on our
braces
legs.
on our legs, right? Yeah. So and it's just, again, it goes back to mom. It goes back to her understanding, and you're right. Maybe it was the way she's always communicated, very straightforward, kind, respectful. Or this is something that was built over the years by that point, of trying to really help Forrest become the best version of himself, or the combination of all. Because I don't know much about his grandparents, and he didn't tell me much about them. He doesn't know much about his father, other than that he hasn't come back from vacation yet. And so we just kind of get a little bit of understanding of the where he got his name, and the undertones, that his mother was not for some of these things that were uh, prominent in that, especially in that area, and during that time. And she fought against all of it, and she used the name to kind of highlight this idea that sometimes people do things that just don't make sense. And I really loved that.
It's a great lesson to impart to your child, in a way of both acknowledging that we don't have control over everything that we're given. The hand we're dealt is the hand we're dealt, whether we like it or not. But that doesn't mean that we can't also take steps with our own lives to stand up for what we feel is right, or to embrace who we are, whether or not that's what everybody else wants us to be.
And before we get into the emotional clarity and all the rest of the stuff that we're looking at, all his patterns, what do you think about the night he talked to us about, where he kind of made fun of the principal? That seems so out of character for him. It showed me a different side of him, that he can be mischievous if he wants to be, but he doesn't. And there's other points in his story where he gives a mischievous smile, and he just kind of, he knows what he's doing, and he knows that maybe like the paddle, it's a little white lie doesn't hurt anybody. He only likes using his ping pong paddle, but he'll use this one. It's okay. But the principle that really stood out to me, because that was so far out of his character, and I wonder if it was against his moral intelligence, his morality, to be that way. And I appreciate it. I'm glad that he wasn't that kind of bully, or trying to avoid pain by being the bully himself. And but he let it slip that night. What do you think about that?
I don't know about mischievous. I honestly always saw it as him just being playful, because Forrest does have a playful side. I don't think it was even him, though I know you could see it that way and interpret it that. I never saw it as him trying to like, get back with the same offense that he was being picked on or teased by others, because I don't think that's just in his nature to be that way. It's not a question of if he struggles with the morality, or if he weighing afterwards how he felt or why he did that. I think Forrest in the moment, because everything is just at face value for him, I think it was him, because he does have a playful side. As you say, there are other instances where we can observe that. I think that's him just simply being unfiltered with his playfulness, and using again his, as I was saying earlier, his extraordinary capacity for memory and perception, awareness, and and it's funny, mimicking. It's funny in a crude way, looking at the full context of when he's mimicking the sounds that the principal was making during sex. It's hilarious. But I don't think that was Forrest's intention in doing that, if that makes sense. It's a little hard to word, but I think he was just being playful with his own lens that he saw the world through.
I feel like there was a moment that in that situation that irked him, and we see him go through this in other points where he gets in a fight in the middle of a Black Panther party. He gets yells at that person that Jenny was dating for the lack of wanting to call him what I think he is. So I feel like that was obviously somebody he loves dearly.
Right. There's a difference there, but finish your thought and then I'll go.
Yeah, and I think that as a little boy, he had no voice. He couldn't do anything about it. He couldn't articulate his words, obviously. And that was his way of saying, I know, I don't know exactly maybe what you were doing, but I don't like the way this makes me feel. And that was his way to um, establish some sort of stability in his own mind. Maybe just make the other person aware that he was aware, and that he's just not had been sent outside to go sit on the swing while the adults talked, quote unquote. I don't know. I understood it differently, but I could be totally wrong, and or we could both be right, and who knows? We'll never know.
I think yours is just as feasible. And with the Black Panther party, I'm glad you brought that up too, because that does show one of the rare instances where we see Forrest struggle with impulse control. And what's interesting, I thought, is that always comes into the picture where Jenny is concerned.
Oh yeah, just like in the rain.
Just like exactly, it's all about if he perceives that she's in danger, if someone's trying to hurt her, or trying to do something that she doesn't want to do. That's why he yells at her abusive boyfriend. That's why he starts beating him up, despite being surrounded by a bunch of Black Panthers, some of whom are armed. That's why he pulls her out of the car and starts beating up her other abusive boyfriend in the rain when they're in college. So it's all about, and I think, I agree with you that you could make a connection, I guess, in some sense, that he's perceiving in her some of the same helplessness that he may have felt when he was much younger, when he was getting picked on and bullied by the kids in his class who would throw rocks at him on the way home from school every day. That definitely makes an impact, and Jenny was often with him on those occasions.
Well, that's the pattern that I picked up on, and that's why I even connected back then. And I, even when he tried to carry her off stage and shove the guys that were being really disrespectful and just rude when she was trying to perform, and on and on and on. But you can see that which, hold on, let me sidestep this, which really could really sets everything in concrete, that he's well aware of everything going on, and this again, the his low IQ or whatever and I have some arguments regarding IQ tests to begin with, but
you and me both.
Yeah, no, we won't get into it right now.
It's not this episode. But.
Not this episode, no. But it goes to show how centered and how well aware he is of everything going on around him. I mean, you said it earlier. I love the fact that you highlighted this his notion of oh my gosh, I can't remember there's a term for it, to understand and know what's around you. But he's very well aware of it, and he's very well aware of the emotional responses or emotional. Let's just go with emotional responses that other people are going to have to a given situation. And if you are part of his pack, part of his family, part of his crew, part of his network, he's going to be there for you, because, and this is where I made this my own personal connection. I could be totally wrong, but I work off patterns, because he knows how it feels, man. He knows how it feels to be minimized. He knows how it feels to be treated horribly. And he knows the loyalty that he's always wanted to have with people in his life, like he's had with his mother, like he had with Bubba. And again, his clarity of emotions, his moral intelligence. I'm going to say, because I think that was handed down from mom, and everybody else that worked in that home. It's just all kind of balanced out, right? It all kind of balanced out to bring him back center and really show I'm not going to be reactive unless I have to protect. Unless I have to be somebody that now has to step out and show my cards, that I do know what's going on, and I don't like it, and I'm not going to stand for it.
He never struggles with it on any other occasion that I could tell. Like even in the army, in Vietnam, he's always, he never succumbs to what Dr. Jonathan Shea calls the berserk state when he talks about working with Vietnam veterans. He never goes into that haze of anger, of unending rage, of recklessness. Even when he's in the midst of some really awful firefighting over there, even then his instincts are to protect, to look out, to rescue the members of his platoon and Bubba in particular. So I think it all came down to, and this ties back again to his mom being at the keystone, the one who started this all, him having really good relationships and a strong support network from day one, in that he may not have had the most friends, but every friend, every good person who he did have in his life was a 10 out of 10 on the kindness and the empathy and the social support scale.
Except for Jenny, I'm still a little, I go back and forth with Jenny, man. I really do, and I'm sorry. I know there's Jenny fans out there, but she, I know. Okay, I'm not gonna get deeper into it, but I know she's gone through incredible trauma.
Yeah,
incredible trauma. So I understand her side of it, but if I'm sitting with Forrest, I feel his pain, man. When it comes to her, it's too bad. But I going back to where we were, it's almost as if he doesn't follow like social rules, right? The cool guys, the jocks, he doesn't follow social rules, but he does follow relational truths. Does that make sense?
yeah, mm-hmm.
Yeah, so with that, you can see, um, like how deeply real he is, how grounded he is, and because of everybody around him, like you said, it's that part is nurture, and within nurture versus nature. I think he got a lot of nurture, and yeah, of course, there's always going to be some nature.
Right. Forrest himself is just immensely caring and kind-hearted as a person. Even if his mother hadn't been the incredible teacher and guardian that she was, this still would have been who Forrest became as he grew up. To a greater, to the same extent. I think he just would have had a little bit of a harder time connecting with some people or making sense of it himself than he does, thanks to her. But Forrest is at the core just a very loving individual.
Absolutely.
Who only wants the best for the other people in his life. And with Jenny, it's I mean, I love Jenny. I think she's an amazing character, and I think that everything
I
that
knew you would.
I think everything. Yeah. Well, and I grew up with two younger sisters, so it's pretty hard for me to to ever feel bad for any kind of connection that goes decades, starting in childhood, and goes and evolves over the ages, because we all go through our own trauma and our own burdens and our own hardships. It's just part of life. That's just part of getting older. But in terms of Forrest and Jenny's relationship, Forrest himself says Jenny was his best and only friend growing up in school. So that tells me that whatever she was going through and whatever she would then went through following that none of that mattered to Forrest. He didn't care where she had been. He didn't care what had been going on. And even though at the time he knew that something was off with her family, with her father, and what was going on, at least the way he describes being aware of it at the time, I don't think he understood the full measure of what was happening. And indeed, no kid really could. Even someone who who was more in line with social norms wouldn't have fully perceived it. But
unless
he did,
they grew up the same way.
Unless they grew up the same way. Yes, thank you. But Forrest did perceive that she was, I think, hurting on an intuitive level, because how could he not, being the feeling soul that he is?
Yes.
So that was always going to be what was most important to him when it came to anything concerning Jenny for the rest of their lives. It was she really got she really earned that special place in his heart to be someone who he could never feel anything but love for.
I think you're right. I think if I'm looking at it from in sections, right? They alluded to the fact that she was being molested. They alluded to the fact that she was being beaten, that she was being obviously neglected. They alluded to the fact that there was a lot of horrible things going on. But as a little girl, she was very loving, very open, and he needed that. He didn't have anybody.
Yeah, and non-judgmental too.
And non-judgmental, right? And that went on all the way through high school. So for close to 2 decades, decade and a half, let's call it. She established an incredible relationship with him. Trust, loving, everything that she was. She was an incredible child, an incredible person. And then as she got older, it almost felt as if she needed him to feel stable herself. She needed him to take advantage of, I'm going to say, to have a break, to be able to reset her mind, to be able to understand or try to retrace who she is, because she lost track of herself. She started creating so many masks in order to feel in power, feel in control, because she felt out of control her whole life. So she put on, the hippie mask, the performer, the experimenter of drugs, the girlfriend, the friend, the traveler, on and on and on and on. And in between that, she got so many, piled on masks that she lost track of herself, her true authentic self. But he was her reset button. It was her ability to be able to go back and find herself and feel love for herself again. But if she got too close to it, she would run away, because she again didn't feel worthy.
Exactly.
She didn't feel good about herself. So then she would take off, hurt him again, and he would forgive her, which is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I love that, actually.
Yeah, no, that's exactly the best thing he could have done to help her, continue to heal, because she.
Or I'm going to interrupt you, to help him, man. Sure, it's going to help him. I mean, her, but him as the person that I'm sitting down with, man, it was the best thing he could have done for himself, is to let go. Because when we hold on to anger, hate, frustration, whatever it is, we're letting anybody and everybody control us.
Right.
We're giving our power away, instead of sitting in centered, sitting in this idea that everything's happening the way it should be, and it's okay. We can look into the future, we can look into the past, but we got to come back here to the present. And he stays so present, so open-minded, so understanding, even if he can't understand, accepting that he can't understand, and just continuing to move forward with love and kindness. That's what makes him an incredible human being. Such a secure attachment behavior from him.
Absolutely. For him and for her together, being able to never hold it against her that she's not able to meet him where he's at when he's being the anchor for her. Because he has very strong feelings for her. He's wanted to, he says to her, long time before he proposes to her, that he would have wanted to be her boyfriend. So she knows and he knows, but that never gets in the way. He never gives that yearning power to create bitterness or resentment in his heart that gets in the way of them still having just such a loving connection, in purely the platonic sense for a long time. And
or even
that's
withdrawal.
or withdrawal. Yeah.
Which is a huge one, man. That's such a big pattern for people, is the withdrawal, isolation, just running away from the pain. He doesn't do that.
And for Jenny, that's significant because, at some point in her life, I think Forrest really became the only person she had who could give her that. Because, she didn't have, we don't know, her mother died at a young age, I think it's said or inferred. We don't know what her sisters are doing, but she doesn't seem to be close with them. She was raised by her grandmother, but grandma's probably passed away, by at some point in her adult life too. And
whose mother was she? Do we know? I don't remember.
Whose mother was Jenny's grandma? We don't know. That's a good. I've always wondered that. Actually, it's funny you mentioned that. I've always wondered, was that her maternal or paternal? I don't know. It's never said.
Because then we could see more ways in which, if she was paternal mom, we can see where she might have avoided, where she walked or didn't protect the dad. Because the dad went through a lot of abuse himself as well. That's just how patterns work. Most abusers have been abused at some point in their life. So now they're taking a position of power so they don't ever have to feel weak again. And it's unfortunate. It's almost like they're trying to solve or fix something, an old wound, with the same knife. It's not supposed to make sense, but it does empower them to in their own mind, create their own form of stability and feel in control again. Or it could have just been the mean dog. I don't know.
Yeah, or both.
Or both, yeah.
I also wanted to touch on it just by extension. Although Jenny is special, she's by no means the only person that Forrest is always present as that stable, always unconditional positive regard figure. He's exactly like that too with Lieutenant Dan Taylor, especially in the years immediately following both of their discharges from the Army, where Lieutenant Dan goes through some very hard times after that because of his wounds, his amputations, and the trauma that he almost certainly is shouldering every day from having not just having lost most of his platoon members, the men that he was leading that were under his command, but also struggling with this identity crisis because of the narrative that he'd constructed for himself going into Vietnam, which was then, because of Forrest actions, completely turned on its head following that.
His legacy. He was supposed to die there like everybody else.
That was supposed to be it for him. He wasn't supposed to come back, much less come back without legs.
Right. Again, and now let's look at his patterns, right? He did what everybody else has done in Forrest's life, to where when Forrest feels very connected to them, he actually cared. He taught, and there were simple things. Change your socks. Always change your socks every time we stop.
So crucial. Oh,
and
crucial.
Yeah, and these little things that in the way he interacted with him, the way he presented himself, the jokes, the non-judgmental approach towards him. He did the same patterns that Jenny did at one point, that other people in his life have done. He felt accepted. He felt seen. And that, is his trigger to say, okay, this is somebody that I can trust. And then he opens up, right? And with Forrest, man, once you're in, you're in.
Exactly. One of my favorite things about their dynamic, I love every time it comes up, is how Forrest never stops calling him Lieutenant Dan or Sir. He calls him that out of respect for the rest of their lives. And even when Lieutenant Dan is at his lowest, That's still how Forrest refers to him. He says, yes, sir, when Lieutenant Dan asks him to go buy another bottle of alcohol for him on the corner because he's run out in his apartment. Forrest just gets up, does it without hesitation.
Yeah, I mean that's just the way he is. And I mean, even at his wedding, he still, he shyly says, "Lieutenant Dan."
That's right.
Yeah. So there's this long. I don't even know how to word that, but basically, he once he understands the pattern of love, of connection, he doesn't let go. He sinks his teeth into it, and he's just open and vulnerable, which is something that's just so beautiful and is so hard to teach and to show. Vulnerability is a superpower, and he understands it without even needing to understand it, which is beautiful to me.
Yeah, in some ways that could be his greatest strength, is that it comes so naturally to him, and he's never afraid to go to that place. I don't think fear even factors into the equation at all with him.
No. And talk about losses. Yeah, he lost his mom. He lost Jenny. He lost Bubba. He almost lost Lieutenant Dan. He lost a bunch of his buddies from his platoon. He has experienced loss most of his life. He lost his dad. On and on and on. And he still understands how to show up, how to continue to live, not exist, but live. And he also grieves very openly, and he continues to love. It doesn't edit him. It doesn't make him again withdrawal, which was a common theme that I saw. There was no withdrawal, which is also, now if we flip the coin over, that's a common theme we see with people that they automatically do. Now I need to protect myself, so I need to withdraw, need to hide. He doesn't do that. He's just so amazing.
It is. If anything, he uses the loss as an opportunity to continue practicing and expanding on a lot of the lessons that the very people who have now died once taught him. For instance, after his mother dies, it's when he uses her lessons about money, about if you have, what's the saying? There's only so much money a man needs. The rest is just for show. And so he takes that opportunity to
the church,
to make that donation to the church, to give, the share of his shrimp company to Bubba's family, so that they finally have some security, which is
insane.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Even Thanks Lieutenant Dan says he's crazy for doing
he's crazy. Yeah. Just, even the money from that little fruit company they buy into.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Some guy named Steve deal. Founded it.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know if it's still around. Maybe.
Lieutenant Dan said he didn't have to worry about money anymore, and that's a good thing.
Yeah. In fact, that's what he says. He says, "That's good. One less thing."
One less thing. Literally that.
Love that's his reaction.
He's amazing, man. What do you think about his grieving process? His ability to just grieve openly and to continue loving, to continue being connected, and to forgive so easily, man, and just be so present. I feel like that's just such a trait that's hard to see. I'm going to even say that we don't always do it, but he's able to do it so clearly, so unobstructedly.
It's what you said earlier, that it's the difference between between I think saying and showing, or teaching and showing. You can't really teach or even sometimes talk about this, but you can show it, and that's what he does. And I think his grieving process is a very healthy one, because he doesn't restrict it to just one thing. He expresses his grief in a lot of different ways. When after his mother dies, to start off, we said already, he makes a donation to the church and helps. Giving is a great way, because you can feel connection to other people, and it helps to give meaning. It helps to give reciprocal meaning, both to their lives and yours, which is part of how we can continue to find meaning despite the loss we are feeling from the grief from the person who's gone. But he also is frank about it in his discussions with Jenny, because it's not long after that she actually comes back into his life, as you said earlier, looking for that reset button. And he uses that also as an opportunity to openly talk with her about his mother dying, and talking about heaven. And he actually says that during their periods, during that time they share together, he actually does most of the talking. Which is very different from how it's usually been with them. But if you think about it, both where they're both coming from in that point, that's exactly what they both needed. And that Jenny was not looking she wasn't ready to open up and go to that vulnerable place on her own for everything that she'd been through. But
she was going through withdrawals, man.
Yeah, she was going through withdrawals.
She was struggling.
But that's good, because, with Forrest doing the talking, she wouldn't have felt any pressure to open up before she was ready. She would have just felt, this is a safe space with someone I know, and I can take this as I need it. Whereas Forrest, on the other hand, it was, I think, very important that he feel like he could talk openly and at length about his mother dying and about his feelings on it, because that would have helped to normalize it. Not in the sense that it didn't matter, of course, but in the sense that it just was. It was, and this is where I'm at now. This is how I feel about it today. And then the next day I still feel about it. The day after that, I feel about it like this today. Maybe it's a little different from the day before, but I'm still thinking and talking about it. And that too is in contrast to at the very end of the film, after Jenny has also died, when Forrest is talking to her at her grave and openly crying and being just so vulnerable in every sense of the word there. So we see that he has a very wide spectrum of ways that he's able to grieve and express his grief, or I should say demonstrate his grief, because that's what we're talking about. Yeah. So I think he's got a great process for it, and it's something that I think we can all relate to in different ways.
No resentment, just this insight that's far above and beyond what I would consider normal. I almost wanted to say he's abnormal, man. In that sense, he's just so brilliant when it comes to that emotional stability, or emotional insight, I should say. Jenny struggled a lot, but he was always there. He took her back even at the end of her life, without any resentment. Lieutenant Dan, same thing. No matter how they treated, where he went, what happened when Lieutenant Dan showed up, it was like nobody skipped a beat, and so on and so forth. He just shows it over and over and over again.
Could have been years, but for him, it might as well have been yesterday. For how glad he is to see them. Didn't matter. He didn't care.
Didn't matter at all.
That's definitely, I think, something I personally relate to. Just having, known friends who've come and gone, in and out over the years. It's a really nice feeling when you have a good friend who you go a long time without seeing. But then when you do reconnect and it feels like it was just yesterday, there is something very warm and fuzzy about that dynamic. That you just pick up where you left off, and it's like it's like all that time didn't even matter. You're still as close as you've always been.
I always, whenever I talk to people about that, I always say that's a deep friendship. When you can be away from each other for a while and then come back, and whether it's been 2 days or 3 years, and it's like you didn't skip a beat. Everything just flows. That's definitely Forrest. What about his all the trauma symptoms, man? Because Vietnam War, all the deaths, everything else. How do you think he does it? In my opinion, is literally exactly what you said earlier, through service. That's a huge one. Running, exercise. He loves it gets him away. It's almost kind of metaphorically to run away, man, to get away. And then caretaking and storytelling. Those are all his ways to deal with all this trauma, and they're so profound, and it's able to balance them out easily.
I'm so glad you mentioned storytelling, because I actually this is one of those things we have where we don't think of it until we're actually recording the episode together. But we talked earlier about Forrest's capacity for memory, and his difference in perception and how he sees the world and communicates as being initially part of his, his own, just his own makeup, his own identity, his own composition. But I think eventually too, maybe consciously, maybe subconsciously, his use of communicating how other people spoke to him or imparted lessons to him, in the permanent sense, whether or not it was one time or 50 times that they connected with him in this way. I think it also became in part a way for him to process and heal from his trauma symptoms, because storytelling, narrative, creating a trauma narrative is, it's one of the go-to approaches for a lot of therapists in that area of the field today. And giving your trauma a structure of a narrative, that this isn't something I am, this is something that happened to me, giving it that beginning, middle, and an end. Forrest would have been uniquely equipped, even on his own, if he weren't seeing the two of us, to do.
Which is, again, I'm going to give this one to Mom. I think Mom and the other caretakers in the home, I can't remember the lady's name.
Miss Louise. I don't think we ever learned her first name.
Well, I'm assuming Louise is her first name.
Oh, they're right.
Yeah.
Her last name.
I think they taught him those things. They taught him that life can be rough, but as long as you love and love yourself, and love others and connect, that you're going to be okay. That vulnerability is really a superpower, just like you said, and just like I guess we've said throughout this, any episode. Vulnerability is your biggest and strongest weapon, in order to find what you're really looking for. And his emotional processing is definitely through regulated through actions and loyalty and consistency. It feels like, and that it's normal for what I'm thinking his diagnosis is, and it's definitely just normal for him in general.
You mentioned his running earlier, and I want to ask you this, and then we'll maybe go into diagnosis. But when he goes on his biggest running spree of his life,
of anybody's life,
of anybody's life,
yeah.
It's over 2 years that he's running back and forth across the states. He does it right after Jenny leaves him again, right after they've finally been intimate, and after he's proposed, but she said no, but then they've been intimate, and then she's gone, disappears the next morning. So she's doing another withdrawal. What do you think his running was about for him? Was it him also withdrawing, or was it him trying to move past something else or process in a different way? Was it about his trauma? What did you think of that?
I think it's all of it. I'm glad you said that, because that was one of my thoughts, and it's actually in my notes, is that I think it was a little bit of all of it. I think he was, that was his form of avoidance, to just go almost that's what I said earlier, run away from his problems. Although there was, he didn't have a job that he had to go to, or this, that, and the other. He could go and take off and be one with his thoughts and meditate, really. So it was a big, long 2-year meditation. But I think it was a 2-year meditation was a culmination of everything, man. All his childhood traumas, everything he went through in the war, the on and off, and knowing that Jenny was using him in her own way, and feeling just small by somebody that he holds at such high esteem on a pedestal, and that she continues to do these things to him, and that the world continues to do these things to him, and I don't think he could take it anymore, man. And instead of falling apart, which I'm so glad he didn't, he ran. He ran, and he was one with his thoughts, and he looked at the beauty of the world, the reflection of the water, and how he couldn't tell, where what was it? The water started and heaven ended, or
that's right.
I forgot how he worded it. And he absorbed that life will continue to keep moving. and that he's okay, and that he's going to learn and meet new people throughout, his this strange adventure that we're on, being alive in the time that we are alive, and his connection with others, which is such an important aspect of his life. That finally he realized that he doesn't need to run from anything anymore, and then he just stops, and I think I'm gonna go home now, and that was it. And not he just needed time to process, and I think that was at that point decades of trauma, of pain, of not knowing how to process, and he gave himself space and time. And I would even equate it to his own meditative therapy sessions, that it took him a couple years to process, to get it all cleared out, and to really understand, because it's not about forgiving. And this is my own perspective, okay? It's not about forgiving, right? It's not about, oh, I forgive you, or I forgive this, or whatever it is, but it's about understanding. And once we understand, the byproduct will be forgiveness. We just stop caring. Then we understand why the people are doing these things, what pain they might be going through, why the world is, hurting us, which is, the world's not hurting you, man. It's just life is happening. And then we finally reset, and we finally get centered, and we can finally just show up. And that's what he did. And that's what I took out of the running. Did that answer your question? I have to feel like I went around in a circle. But,
it is. No,
okay.
you just you went back and forth across the coast just like he did.
There we go.
Yeah.
East, west, north, and south. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, we hit all the compass points, because I agree with you. I think that I think there was a little bit of everything in it. He even says at one point that he feels that what his running was all about was putting the past behind him. Was moving away in a not just a literal sense, but but using that literal demonstration to feel it on an emotional level.
Right. Because just like that other podcaster, I wish I could remember. I want to give the guy credit, man, but I can't remember who he was. And I saw that clip. I didn't even listen to the whole thing. Somebody had sent it to me, because I know I'm a Forrest fan myself. And just know that he's always been aware of what's going on. He knows exactly what's going on. He's not oblivious to it. So all that pent up pain, oh my gosh, but it never turned into suffering. And that's the key to it. Pain is inevitable, man. It's just part of life. Suffering's a choice. And he chose not to suffer. He chose to sit in the pain, because it will pass. It will pass. But you get a buildup, and then something like, Jenny kicks in, where you finally are intimate with somebody that you just so deeply love, and then they just abandon you. That's his perspective of it, anyway. That is traumatizing.
Yeah.
And then now it just opens the floodgates to everything.
Yeah, total emotional curveball.
Yeah.
And a lot of whiplash from that. And yeah, I think you could, as you say, if it was about everything, then it was sort of, that was finally the spark that lit the fuse for what his running needed to help him process.
For sure.
So what are we thinking for diagnosis?
I have rarely diagnosed this, because it's so overly diagnosed. People use it and throw it at everybody, but I think he's autistic. I think he's on the spectrum. They changed the terms now, so I think it would be like a level 1, level 2. Very high functioning is what it used to be called. I don't know if that's derogatory now. I'm really sorry if it is. I don't mean to be disrespectful. I'm just have been taught in the old ways with the old names, titles. I don't know. So that's what I was thinking. There was also trauma exposure, persistent complex grief. But I'm almost positive he's autistic. What do you think?
I thought about autism. I thought about the autistic spectrum, and what and I think you could make an argument for it. Certainly that's there. I don't think he meets the full criteria, though, even for a low level. What got me thinking about it was that, there's, even though he goes through, even though there's trauma, even though there's a lot that happens to him, as you say, he never gets to the point where he's completely overwhelmed by it. He never shows what we would call an extreme stress response to any of the unexpected shifts or life changes. He reacts to them, but it's all of it is very intentional, and in many respects very healthy, if maybe atypical to the average person response, such as the running, or or some of the ways that he expresses his grief that we were talking about earlier. The other thing too that got me thinking, I don't know if autism is the best diagnosis here, is that he doesn't have the sensory stimulation that at least people I've worked with who've been on the spectrum have often told me about, that they struggle with. He doesn't talk about feeling overwhelmed by noise or excessive light stimulation. He's in the New Year's party with Lieutenant Dan, and he's talking and yelling and celebrating and having a good time. I mean, he's in Vietnam with some of the most unrelenting noise, decibel firefighting that can go on, but he doesn't go into shell shock or freeze up on the combat field. He's able to run, he's able to think and work actually to rescue his friends who are helpless, some of them. So he doesn't present with that aspect either. I think for this one, what I ended up looking at was a dual diagnosis, actually, of other trauma specified stressor disorder, because we do, even though he's he's got some great coping in place, the trauma's there, no question, and that is still a factor. And then I think he actually would meet the criteria for social pragmatic communication disorder, which is hear me out on this one, because this is I'm going off the DSM-5, and this is in the neurodevelopmental disorders, similar to autism and intellectual disability disorder, but it's a little different. We know he's not intellectually disabled. He can think, he can function. He learns at a different rate, and his perception and response to social cues is different. But as we've said now many times, he's very smart. He knows how to function as a stable adult in a living situation. He knows how to clean himself. He knows how to dress himself. He knows how to balance his checkbook. He knows how to go to the bathroom. He knows how to interact in social situations, get where he needs to be going. He talks about that, even during his running, when he was doing this for 2 years, he's able to stop and find food and shelter when he needs it, and buy new clothes as the old ones wear out. We see his outfit change periodically. So there's nothing, I'm not talking about any kind of intellectual or neurological handicap. The social pragmatic communication disorder, what stood out about this diagnosis to me was that it talks about having impairment of, what is it, the criteria? Impairment of the ability to change communication to match context or needs of the listener, as well as talking differently or avoiding use of overly formal language. In this respect, we do see this from Forrest, because his manner of speaking, his choice of words, for instance, using phrases like boys and girls together college instead of co-ed, through his entire life, never alters. Things like his word choice, things like not using inferences, which is another criteria I thought was really interesting. When I say words like deficits or difficulties, by the way, I'm talking about in terms of the standards that society sets, not standards as in Forrest is not good at this per se. Difficulties following rules for conversation and storytelling, or knowing how to use verbal and nonverbal signals to regulate interaction. Difficulty understanding what is not explicitly stated, making inferences or non-literal or ambiguous meanings, idioms, humor, metaphors, meanings that are dependent upon context or interpretation. So I think if you're gonna give any kind of diagnostic classifier to Forrest, I want to be mindful that it's not something that labels his emotions, labels how he feels, because there's nothing wrong with how he feels. There's nothing wrong with who he is as a person. I would want it to be something that, just for diagnostic purposes, we can clarify that his communication style is different, and that's always been a part of who he is, and this is how he interacts with people, and that in many respects it's a strength, not a weakness by any stretch. And I think that using it as using the social pragmatic communication disorder, at least as far as I could find, was the best diagnosis that kind of summarized that aspect of how he talks to the world.
I can see that, and dude. You know me with diagnosis, man. I don't like labeling anybody to begin with, and so I'm 110% fine with that. If I'm being honest with myself, I did see him meeting criteria for autism, and so with part A or whatever it is, and I'm trying to look in my book right now too. I got the pocket little one here. Deficits in social emotional reciprocity. He struggles with back and forth in conversations. He often misses social cues like sarcasm, innuendos, emotional nuances, stuff like that. He shares thoughts honestly and directly. A lot of times not even recognizing the emotional context of them. It's like when he tells Jenny, like when he tells her he loves her, or when he's talking about Bubba's death or war. It's very flat, very factual. Lack of emotions associated with it. It's because of his processing. He understands it. He understands the depths of it, but it's incongruent. It doesn't match what I guess societal norms would be. Nonverbal communication. So that would mean he would get section A, and then so section the deficits and not in the verbals. He doesn't have the facial expressions or the gestures a lot of times. His body language is delayed or just completely off. He fails to interpret other people's body language to understand that they're either frustrated with him or whatever the heck's going on with them. Struggles with eye contact. You can see it kind of the stiffness and the weirdness and like the earlier scenes when he's on the bus or throughout the different parts, even when he gets rocks thrown at him.
Right, he doesn't immediately react to it.
Yeah, so he meets criteria there. Developing and maintaining relationships. This one I struggled with, but I can make it work. He connects deeply with a few like trusted people, but he really struggles with peer relationships outside of these people that make him feel safe. He's bullied, dismissed. He doesn't understand social hierarchies. He doesn't when he was younger, he didn't play the games in social situations. He speaks like truths, even if like it's awkward or misunderstood, and he just is very direct, which again is a big pattern. So I would make it to where he fits criteria there too. And then part B, restricted repetitive patterns. Is that what it is?
Yeah, restrictive repetitive patterns of behavior, interests, or activities manifested by at least two of the following.
Right. And so I got this one he partially meets, right? And so far he's met all the criterion, and then now this one's partially.
This is where I ultimately diverge, so I'm curious to hear like where you go.
Well, because he doesn't do the hand flapping. Although there are some times when he does some awkward hand things that he does do, but he doesn't have the hand flapping, but he does have the repetitive speech. So I can give that repeating like phrases or even like almost sounds like a script sometimes.
Yeah, no, it's almost it's formulaic phrases like Mama always said.
Right, literally that. He repeats routines. Everything's in order. Everything's very in a box. Needs to be done a certain way. Even the way he mows the lawn.
Yes, I was just
Even
thinking about that.
uh-huh. uh, how he's sitting by the bus stop, and now him and his son are sitting by the bus stop, and just all these things that are very specific and need to be in a certain order, in a certain fashion, in a certain way. Routine, ritualizing. What is it called? Ritualizing behaviors.
Yeah, so it's having just a inflexible adherence to routines. There it is.
And so when you mentioned the military earlier, I have known a couple of people that were in the military, and were on the spectrum, but they thrived because of the routine, man.
Well, in the military, everything, every hour, every minute, practically every second of the
Is
day is
micromanaged.
micro. Exactly.
Yeah, and so he thrived. And running, same thing. And even the shrimp boat was organized. Had to be certain things had to be done in certain orders and in certain ways. It's very repetitive, very ritualistic. Uh, um, um, Sudden changes, deaths, breakups. Uh, it puts him in emotional distress, but it doesn't affect his whole life. Right? He doesn't go out, but he makes it through only because of routine. And then we just literally got done talking about it, how he goes for a 2-year run because his routine was broken. Somebody messed his whole world up. He's highly restrictive, highly fixated. Ping pong again, running, uh, the shrimping, and everything else, the lawn mowing, and whatever.
It's interesting because I hadn't thought of it in that light, but you're right. You could see the running as an extreme, I guess, an extreme stress response, albeit one that was ultimately very healthy and healing for him in response to that. So I suppose it really does come down to clinical judgment in that sense.
Literally that. And the last little piece is he does react in not a strange way, but he does become overwhelmed when the fighting starts. He does shoot back, but he does freeze, which most people would, right? Unless you're used to combat, it's jarring, especially since it had been rating up, down, sideways, and backwards for however many months or weeks that was. But he it was loud, it was chaotic, and he was startled. He does like quiet. He does like to be at his home where it's quiet and stable. He always emphasizes those moments, again, like running by that lake, the quietness of the desert, being in the rain and night, being out on a boat, being sitting on a tree, being all these things when he has what would you call that, like sensory deficit, right?
Yeah, tranquility, to be a little more prosaic about it. I think he, whether or not you want to argue that past a certain point the noise becomes a severe stressor for him, he prefers being in quiet, calm environments on the whole.
And I only threw that in to talk about what you talked about earlier, because it's not even essential for diagnosis. It's just an additive. So that's why he meets it for me, man. But if the other one's lighter, I'm rolling with you. I'm totally okay with that, because I love this guy, and I don't think yeah, absolutely. All right, so treatment. I went last time. You want me to go? You want to go? Where's your head
Yeah,
at?
I'll start
What
off.
do you think?
I'm up for starting
Okay.
today. First and foremost, meet him right where he's at with communication. I would want to learn his style if I could, rather than try to make him communicate to learn mine, because he's not. That's it's as a therapist, I've always seen that it's part of my job to learn, and if I can, adjust my own communication style so that the person I'm talking to can better understand the ideas or feelings that I'm conveying. And as a clinician, that's something that you train in. That's something you learn how to do both in school and on the job. So yeah, I would work on learning to connect with him and learning to speak and listen through his lens rather than, hand him my own and say, now you need to start opening your opening your mind a little bit in that sense, because that we'd stop before we started. I think, in many respects, I think a strengths-based approach, starting with his abilities as a storyteller, looking at how the way that he sees the world in many respects as telling his life story as he lives it, and how that can be helpful for him, as well as all the ways that he excels athletically, being an amazing runner. And we didn't even talk about how he's a pro football and a pro ping pong player.
Right.
It got to the point where his sports, earned him a couple of White House trips. Those are things that that I would I hope to explore more with him, and look at ways that we could connect that into his narrative, his personal narrative as well, and also see about doing some grief work and some trauma work. Obviously, that's all going to be there. He's got a lot of, as we said before, a lot of great coping skills already in place. So just expanding on those, I don't think we would need to cover a lot of new territory, essentially, because what he's doing is working pretty well for him. So I think it would be more about, I think it would be more about reinforcing what's already there rather than trying to build new ones, because he doesn't need them. He's really doing a good job. And for getting in deeper, I would look at ways to ask, and if he's open to it, encourage some reframing with how he sees himself in terms of what is a quote unquote smart man. Asking is, you have this extraordinary memory and this wonderful depth for love. How do you define being a smart man versus, what have people been telling you is smart? And what does that mean to you? And, do you base your own intelligence off of, how many trigonometry problems you can solve in an hour, or do you base it off of how clearly you can recall the most impactful conversations with people you care about, Bubba, your mother, Jenny, and everybody else, and that kind of thing. So hopefully, strengths-based with a little bit of reframing, similar to the coping skills, just expand a lot of what is already there, and maybe tie it into moving forward. Again, we haven't even talked about this, but him at the end of the film being a single parent now, raising his own child. Now that Jenny's gone, ask him, as his father, what is it that you think about a lot? When you think about taking care of him, what are some lessons or some, could you look to things Jenny taught you or your own mother taught you? What do you remember that your own mother, because your own mother, she raised you as a single parent, and you said yourself that she did a real good job. Are there things that worked for you with her as your parent that you now want or see yourself doing in a similar sense with Forrest Jr.?
I love it. I think we're basically on the same wavelength, man. I don't think it's about any sort of quote unquote repair, because we're not fixing anybody anyway. That's just not the way therapy works. It's really just amplifying his gifts, man. His gifts. He has an abundance. He's a multi-billionaire's Christmas tree. There are presents all over the place with this guy. So I would meet him where he's at. I'd start with more of a narrative, have him process his life experiences, something that just naturally does, right? But I having worked, and they were all kids. I haven't worked with an adult in a while that was on the spectrum. Yeah, maybe I have actually, but this person's not diagnosed with that. But we need to be direct. I talk in metaphors a lot because, as you know, we don't want to give you the answers, right? We're not here to tell you if you do this, this, and this, your problems will go away. Which 9 times out of 10 is true, but we just can't do that. They need to have that aha moment. They need to get there to say, "Oh shoot," and then it clicks.
Exactly.
And everything just flows. But for him, I need to be a lot more direct, a lot more specific. I can't speak in metaphors. And I need for him to just naturally process, and I'm going to be a nurturer for that. That's going to be my role, right? I'm going to validate the way he's, remembering and connecting, all the meaningful things that have gone in his life. Even if it doesn't fit like a clinical model or anything, I don't care, man. I just need him to start stacking up all these gifts, all this incredibleness that is him. So at the end of it all, he's just gleaming or beaming, just glowing with this understanding that, wait, I'm actually a pretty great guy. I'm actually very smart. I'm actually very incredible. Grief counseling. So I'd explore his love for Jenny, Bubba, his own rituals of remembering, going to the graves, thinking, talking to them, storytelling again, um, creating traditions with his son, because he did, or he started to, the letter and going to see them and talking about his wins and everything else. I'd try to help him create language for his grief, for a lot of things that he doesn't know how to communicate. He's gonna give me a catchphrase, right? Mom always told me, but I want to teach him words. I want to give him language, but it has to come from him. He needs to teach me how to teach him.
I like that.
What these words are and how he's going to express it, and then just literally just sit with it, man. Just sit with it, because sometimes the words are going to fail, and then sometimes they're going to be the key to the door that's been locked forever, and it's okay. It's all okay. A lot of life skill stuff, which is not usually my forte, but I think for him, trying to like navigate, social misunderstandings, advocate for himself, structure a routine for like some more of emotional regulation, because he's structured in other ways. So I think that would help him balance out the two different aspects of his life that he's pretty solid in, but it just give him a little bit more. And then I think, honestly, this is a weird one. I don't usually do this. This is very Gestalt. I think it's the Gestalt pulling out of my head. Maybe some group therapy, man.
That's interesting.
Dan and a few other people, so that he can feel good about just being emotionally honest, man. Just be and knowing how intellectual he really is, and feel less othered, right? Because he feels so distracted or disconnected from everybody else, that might give him an opportunity to feel like part of a group, feel like part of something bigger, which he's always wanted to do. We just need to be warm. We need to be considerate, patient. We need to let him lead all the stories, man. He needs to lead it all. Nothing structured, because I think that type of structure is not going to will not work for him, because he needs to show up the way he shows up, just like you said. And I wouldn't undermine him in any way, because his insights are just profound.
Yeah.
So I think that's just it's again highlighting the gifts he already has. Long term, honoring his grief, celebrating that he's unique and that's okay, and then continuing his legacy with his kid, just like you said. I think that's going to be a driving force for him, because it's going to show love, create a different type of structure that's a little bit more lenient, a little bit more open, because his boy's going to need that, because he does have a few traits of his father, but he's a lot more socially connected. I don't even know what the right words are, but he understands social cues a lot more, and just that he can live a heart-centered existence. That's what I want to say, and that it's okay. That's a beautiful thing, and that we wish we could live that life. So I'm honored to see somebody else be able to do it.
That's beautiful. Really, I could not agree more. I love that even though we differ a little on diagnosis, we're 100% aligned when it comes to the treatment approach.
On treatment, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is weird, because I'm usually the one that wants to go as light as possible. But he just fit criteria for me. It was just it was too blinding for me not to see it, in my opinion anyway. It's okay. He's gonna see us weekly. He's looking forward to it. I'm gonna definitely play with little Forrest, and we're gonna do some tree climbing.
I've never done ping pong play therapy before, but I'm definitely eager to test that out.
I don't know if I want to get destroyed that bad. But I think I'd rather go climb a tree or something. I think maybe I'll run. I want to ride the lawnmower.
There we go. Gosh, that sounds fun. Yeah, I used to love. It's totally random aside, but I used to love just like trailing after my dad as a kid whenever he would mow the lawn, because I loved smelling the grass and also like getting it in my face as it would get blown up. So cool. All right, thank you everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you all next time on Therapy by the Book.
See you soon.